Ladies and gentlemen, farming has been a big challenge in 2019. This is probably one of the worst years I have ever seen in this country. The floods were at biblical proportions. The farmers could not plant in many cases because the ground was too waterlogged. Heavy rainstorms and snowstorms, and just a bad crop year for many of these farmers, on top of Trump's trade war. Many of them did not do so well. Suicides have always been a big problem among farmers, not only here, but across Europe as well. In Europe, it's big in dairy farming. So, Kansas, the state, is trying to step in to help these farmers because so much suicide is going on. So this came out in the Kansas City Star, December 28th, 2019. Kansas farmers die by suicide at an alarming rate. State steps in to help them cope. So, one thing I can honestly say, this industry is a tough one. It really is. He fought it as long as he could. Mick Rosh didn't know what was wrong until he finally hit a wall he could no longer climb on his own. It was 10 years ago. His brother, younger, just by a year and 3 days, had recently died. A late spring frost damaged his wheat. He was depressed. His wife knew it. He didn't. He thought surely there was something wrong with her. And finally, it escalated, said the 65-year-old retired dairy farmer. Okay, so this is a dairyman. Yeah, he's a dairy farmer who lives in Sedgwick County, west of Wichita. One day he was out in the shed and checking his drills used to sow the wheat when he laid down and fell asleep right under them for 3 hours. He went back to the house and told his wife that she was right. There's something wrong. We need to get help, he said. He still gets the occasional funny look when he challenges a taboo among his brethren farmers and shares that he takes antidepressants. The tendency among farmers, he said, is you just don't like to talk about your difficulty. You put your head down and go to work and deal with it. Maybe that's what's wrong with y'all. You don't talk about things enough. You keep it bottled up and to the point where it's driving you to suicide. The Kansas Department of Agriculture has decided that's just not healthy anymore. This month, the agency introduced a website to encourage stressed out farmers and ranchers to talk. The increase in suicide rates among farmers and ranchers is alarming, Kansas Governor Laura Kelly said in a statement announcing the new website. We must do everything in our power to curb this trend and provide our farmers and ranchers alternatives to suicide. Kansas AG Stress.org leads farmers to local and national sources of help, including the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. This is quite honestly long overdue. I'm sorry that it's taken so long to put something like this together, said Kelsey Olson, Kansas Assistant Agriculture Secretary. I feel like it's just one small step in the direction of starting the conversation, getting people thinking and talking about it. Earlier this week, U.S. Senator Charles Schumer visited a dairy farm in Western New York to launch a nationwide battle against rising suicide rates among farmers. Yeah, this is a nationwide problem. I mean, I know this focuses heavily on Kansas, but this is really all over the country. He called on the Center for Disease Control and Prevention to conduct a comprehensive study of suicides among farmers, a first of its kind. The CDC has run into recent problems trying to gather accurate data. And he championed the Seeding Rural Resilience Act that includes a number of measures to help farmers manage their stress. Among them, a $3 million public awareness campaign about mental health issues on farms and ranches. The new Kansas website offers support for all the members of a farm family, from teens to aging adults, which specific attention paid to veterans who are farming and bringing to the field their own unique set of mental health needs. Stress is inherent in living off the land. Weather is public enemy number one. Well, you need that weather in order to even have a farm. So that can't be too much of an enemy. Yes, it was probably extreme, but a lot of people are saying this is climate change, and you got a president that don't believe that. So that means nothing will ever get done, and these farmers are probably going to suffer for years to come. In recent years, though, market uncertainties, natural disasters, and ongoing trade wars have created crushing mental stresses. State agriculture officials say the toll on the farm is just as ugly as in the cities and suburbs. Anxiety, substance abuse, broken marriages, emotional distress. Olson, who grew up on a farm in Northwest Kansas and has a small ranch with her husband, is eager to banish the stigma that is loosening its grip, but still clings to discussions about mental health in rural communities. She had heartfelt conversations at the state fair in Hutchinson this year and came away knowing which farmers lost friends to suicide. They had been pallbearers. Yeah, well, but then you know what? This opens your eyes to a lot of things. We know the suicide rates is high, but this probably accounts for a lot of it, along with other reasons, but definitely farming contributes to a big portion of it. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to go down a little. When the farm crisis hit in the early 80s, I somehow managed to talk to farmers about stress and not get laughed out of the room, said Griffin. Now, a Kansas State University professor emeritus who lives in Manhattan, it was not an easy conversation farmers tended to have. The late 70s and 80s conjuncture, the perfect storm of bad weather, high fuel cost, and a grain embargo that dropped the prices kind of overnight. What makes it stressful now was the same in the 1980s, the lack of ability of an individual farmer to control many of the aspects that are affecting them, said Griffin. But I would imagine it's like that a lot. You got to look at many things they have to go through. They go through drought years, and then they go through weather, excessive extreme weather, like they did this past spring and summer, it really all year. So they can't control none of that. New worries for farmers were created by floods that followed by droughts, creating crippling financial whiplash. Now, I know this year those farmers got compensated several times by Trump for the trade war that went on. So, they did get, some of them did get something out of it. Maybe not everything they wanted, but they certainly did get something, you know. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. They're already telling you the heat waves are going to be more extreme and long lasting. These floodings are going to be longer lasting than we've ever seen before in the past. And Everything's changing rapidly, especially with the environment. So, what are you going to do? You either have to suck it up and get through it, but suicide, surely they should be able to find something else to do other than just jump to suicide. That's just my opinion. Um, in my family, there were sharecroppers. And as tough as that was, nobody committed suicide. And many of those sharecroppers, they were cheated out of their money and got nothing for the entire season. So how were they supposed to support their families? But they made it through, you know? And ladies and gentlemen, a lot of those sharecroppers back in those times had wives that had to work as domestic help inside of white people's houses. And they found a way to get through it. So whenever he couldn't make money sharecropping, she at least had that little bit of money coming in from the domestic work. That's the way it was. And we got through it, and the suicides were not high. But y'all, please tell me what you think. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.